Kunja Bihari. Jaya Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivaradari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari. Jashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana. Jashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana. Jamuna Tiravana Chari. Jamuna Tiravana Chari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari. Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana. Jashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana. Jamuna Tiravana Chari. Jamuna Tiravana Chari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Jaya Radha Madhava. Jaya Radha Govinda Radha Govinda Radhe. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 13, text 39. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Namo namaste kila mantra devata. Dravyaya sarva kritave kriyatmane. Vairagya bhaktya majayanubhavita. Jnanaya vidya gurave namo namaha. Namo namaste kila mantra devata. Dravyaya sarva kritave kriyatmane. Vairagya bhaktya majayanubhavita. Jnanaya vidya gurave namo namaha. Please chant. Namo namaste mantra devata. Word for word. Namaha, namaha. Obeisances unto you. Te, unto you, who are worshipable. Akila, all-inclusive. Mantra, hymns. Devata, the Supreme Lord. Dravyaya, unto all ingredients for performing sacrifices. Sarva kratave, unto all kinds of sacrifices. Kriya atmane, unto you the supreme form of all sacrifices. Vairagya, renunciation, bhaktya, by devotional service, atma jaya anubhavita, perceivable by conquering the mind, jnanaya, such knowledge, vidya guruve, the supreme spiritual master of all knowledge, namaha namaha. Again, I offer my respectful obeisances. Jimmy G, can you bring some water? Translation by Srila Prabhupada. O Lord, you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead and are worshipable by universal prayers, Vedic hymns, and sacrificial ingredients. We offer our obeisances unto you. Thank you. You can be realized by the pure mind, freed from all visible and invisible material contamination. We offer our respectful obeisances unto you as the Supreme Spiritual Master of knowledge in devotional service. Om Agyantimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Mina Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Mukam Kuriti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Girim Yat Kripatamaham Vande Shri Gurun Dinataranam Vanchakalpatrubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktarinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So, this chapter is entitled The Appearance of Lord Vraja. So we've gone through many of different descriptions coming up to that. A lot, interestingly, has been about yajna and performing sacrifice and how the body of the Lord is comprised of different, or his body makes up different elements of sacrifice, which is interesting. It kind of reflects the universal form, which comprises different elements of the material world or universe. So the first thing that I thought, actually, when I read the word for word, is how amazing Prabhupada is and so broad-minded in his presentation of Krishna consciousness that he can so easily make such ancient wisdom, which also is quite complicated, can be interpreted in many ways. But he can present it in such an appealing and approachable way that anyone from any walk of life can access it, and it can touch the heart. So particularly I thought was really cool was his translation of Akila Mantra Devata, that Akila meaning all-inclusive, and Mantra Devata, hymns to the Supreme Lord. So Prabhupada has said many times that it's not necessary that you chant only Krishna. You know, if someone's coming from a different tradition, you can chant the name of your Devata, your Supreme Lord, your worshipable deity. And there's nothing wrong with that, as long as it's sincere cry from the heart that the Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he'll be pleased and he'll reveal himself. So that's such a revolutionary concept in spirituality. That, because there's many traditions where I'm sure we've all had experience. If you try and speak to them about spiritual subjects or philosophy or try and open the door, then many times it's very, what do you say, dogmatic, or very like, it's a closed approach, like, no, this is the only way, and everything else is wrong, So I found that really, very powerful, Prabhupada's ability to take this ancient wisdom, which is extremely powerful and very deep, and make it accessible and inclusive to so many different kinds of people who'll be coming from different backgrounds. So, that Akila Mantra Devata is quite a nice thing, I thought. And it made me think about that aspect. He translates also Akila Mantra, universal prayers. So when I first read that, I was thinking, well, what can that mean? And what I was thinking is that my interpretation of that was that God, Krishna, or whichever tradition one's coming from, he hears the prayers and desires not only of just, the worshippers in that particular tradition, but he actively fulfills the desires and he hears the prayers of every living entity. So I know many devotees who've had experience growing up in devout Catholic families or devout Christian families or things like that, where they've been praying to God, please reveal more of your personality. Please reveal yourself to me. I want to love you. I want to serve you. Not picking on any particular tradition, just as an example. And but they felt that they couldn't go deeper in that. That they wanted to understand more about God, who He really was, and how to love Him more deeply. And they felt they were hitting like a brick wall, you could say, or like a limit. So then they had dreams, like where Lord Jesus came to them in dreams and would say, okay, I want to help you progress in your path. So, you should, there's some people out on the street tomorrow or whatever. I know one already had this happen to them. And they'll be having these books, and you should buy one of the books. And so they wake up and they're like, wow, this is far out. So then they actually go out and they meet devotees, and they come in contact with Krishna consciousness. Because our understanding is that there are many different traditions for time and place and circumstance. And Prabhu gives the understanding that just like you have a pocket dictionary and you have the full encyclopedia with all of the terms, all of the context, everything in detail. So he explains that the Vedas are like that. The Vedic wisdom is so extremely deep and contains every aspect of creation, from medicine and warfare and construction of different things, even spaceships, or what we would call Vimana in Sanskrit, all the way up to spiritual emancipation, understanding God, His personality, all those different kinds of things. So, of course, we recommend chanting Hare Krishna. That's the most recommended method, the most, we would say, powerful names of God that put you directly in contact with Krishna, the personal aspect of God. But God makes Himself so approachable. He's so munificent and so kind that whatever relationship or whatever approach someone wants to make to Him, He makes Himself available. So it's quite wonderful. And I was listening quite a long time ago, but it stuck in my mind to a class by His Grace Madhavananda Prabhu from Puri. And he said that that Krishna or God, He's not just the property of ISKCON. I know it's far out to think about. That it's not that we own Krishna, and Krishna is just like ours. Or even Gaudiya Vaishnavism. It's not that we have like dibs on Krishna, but Krishna is actually the property of every living entity. You know, he's within everyone's heart, and he's also um, the most caring and most loving and beloved object of every living entity. So, yeah, whoever is trying to approach God in whatever way, we can be appreciative that they're trying to approach the same person, Krishna, but they might not have the details fully like figured out, which will come in time as long as one's sincere. And I was also thinking about this aspect of Krishna making himself approachable through universal prayers, mantra, different things like that. That Krishna makes himself constantly available without fail. We would say 24/7. Our concept of time is pretty limited. But eternally and unlimitedly, he makes himself approachable. So, I mean, I don't know any friends that would feel the same way, 24/7, nonstop, constantly. You can come and, tell your tale of woe or tell your great happiness or share something. So Krishna is such our best friend, Sufrit. He's like that we can approach him at any point, any time, and reciprocate with him in a loving relationship. So, yeah, of course, our relationships in the material world, they're somewhat limited by time and space. So there's even this pastime, I believe it's Puranic pastime or story. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it's in Radhesham Prabhu's self-discovery course. What do you call it? Discover Yourself, yeah, DYS. So, well, that we have, every living entity has 4 wives. So, if there's this pastime where a person dies, and but before he dies, he's asking his 4 wives, will you, how will you be able to progress? Will you be able to come with me? I need accompaniment, basically. So he has 4 wives, and one is saying that immediately when he asks her, she says, "No, I won't go. I'm not going to do this sacrifice. I won't go with you to the next life." And then in a progression, the others are more willing, more available. They'll say, "I'll come with you to the funeral pyre." And then the final one says, "Yes, I'll come with you to the next life," the 4th. So does anyone, except for the DYS students, know what these 4 wives represent in terms of the progression from this life to the next? Mm-hmm.
So could you just repeat the 3 different wives, or the 4 different wives?
So one of the wives says that she won't go at all, not even to the funeral pyre. One of the wives says that she'll go up to the funeral pyre when the sacrifice is going on, the body's being burned. That's as far as they can go. The last wife says that she'll go beyond death, so she'll go with him into the funeral pyre. And what's the second one? What does she say? Anyway, the second one, I can say what the answer is, but she also won't be able to go beyond death.
So it's like all your riches.
Mm-hmm. One is assets.
That could be like probably the first wife or something, that doesn't go to your, after you die, you don't get anything with it. It doesn't go beyond.
First wife is actually the body, material body and mind. Or not mind, sorry, material body, gross body. The second is assets. So assets like your material wealth or
Okay. Yeah, the body, wealth, and
accumulating.
then the next one would then be your subtle body, which goes with you after death.
That goes with you, yeah. The third wife that we have is considered the relatives. So the relatives can go up to the funeral pyre, but they won't go with you, you know, at least unless you have
Okay, yeah.
very special relatives they want to continue to the next life. So the relatives we have to leave behind at death, but the soul is considered the fourth. The soul can go with us even after this body is destroyed. Do you know where it is? I know Radhesham Prabhu quotes this in his Discover Yourself courses, yeah, which I actually sat in yesterday. One of Arjun's students, Sachin, he quoted that. So, but Krishna, as the point that we were making with that, Krishna is so amazing that he'll go with us life after life after life after life. There's no limit in his approach or his availability. And when I was reading also the end of this verse, where it's saying, Vidya Guruve Namaha, that we offer our respectful obeisance unto you as the supreme spiritual master of knowledge and devotional service, of course, made me immediately think of Lord Chaitanya and the very famous verse, Vairagya Vidya Nija Bhakti Yoga Shikshartam Eka Purusha Purana Sri Krishna Chaitanya Sharira Dhari Kripam Buddhiryastam Aham Prapadye. That let me take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, who has descended in the form of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to teach us real knowledge, his devotional service, and detachment from whatever does not foster Krishna consciousness. He has descended because he is an ocean of transcendental mercy. Let me surrender unto his lotus feet. So, as this chapter has been discussing sacrifice, of course we understand that in this age, the modern age of Kali, or the Iron Age, that the yajna, the appropriate sacrifice that we have to perform is Sankirtan yajna, and congregational chanting of the names of Krishna or names of God. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is so kind that he's personally come to teach us how to be successful, how to properly perform this sacrifice, and and give us practical, you could say, practical demonstration, because Krishna came and he spoke Bhagavad Gita 5,000 years ago, which is theoretical. But then he has to come, the mentality that Krishna has is I have to come again to practically teach what I've instructed. I have to, you could say, that's more of a modern term, put your money where your mouth is, but practice what you preach. So he comes as Lord Chaitanya to teach us this sacrifice. And one of the main aspects of our Sankirtan Yajna is something I'm sure most of us can relate with, is you have to accept, or just by performing Sankirtan, you have to suffer a little bit. Many different things, whether it's too cold outside when you're trying to share Krishna consciousness, or many people around who have disturbed minds, or people who just decide to heckle you. You guys are crazy, why are you wearing dresses? Whatever it is, there's many different kinds of suffering that come by performing this yajna, this sacrifice for the benefit of others. But this is actually recommended in Srimad Bhagavatam, that tapyante lokatapena sadhavak praya sojanaha Paramaradhanam taddi purushasya kilatmanaha. That it is said that great personalities almost always accept voluntary suffering because of the suffering of people in general. This is considered the highest method of worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who's present in everyone's heart. So, sometimes in karmakandic understanding, or very, you could say, a very narrow-minded concept of how to perform yajna and how to worship, follow the Vedas, and all these things is you have to know all these mantras, and you need to perform it at the proper time of day. You need to be facing the right way, and you need to be always extremely clean. You need to chant appropriate mantras, appropriate time, all these things. It's very complex, very complicated. But our sacrifice, the sacrifice Prabhupada has done for us, that we have to pass on, is suffering for the people in general, trying to, whatever it takes, do whatever it takes, give whatever it takes to help give them the same wisdom that we have been given that's relieved us of our suffering. So first we have to realize, that we're suffering. That often takes a good amount of humility, that we're not perfect and we have a long way to go. And then the second is finding the solution. So at least for some of us, very mercifully, the devotees just plopped a book in our hands, or we're doing kirtan, we just happened to walk by and see it. We didn't ask for our good fortune, but it's been given to us without even asking for it. So the least we can do is to try and repay that debt, trying to give that same good fortune to others, that same opportunity. I found another nice verse in 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam that says, it is indeed the duty of all true disciples to repay the debt to their spiritual master by offering him with pure hearts their wealth and even their very lives. So, Atmanivedam, the offering of the self, full self-surrender. This is the duty of a disciple, not that we take initiation and we're given the greatest opportunity to become free from the material world, and we just take it cheaply and don't stay true to our vows or are slack in our practices. But we've been given a very important and a very rare gift, and if we can take advantage of it, then we can achieve the greatest goal in life. So in purport, Prabhupada is also elaborating how only by a pure mind one can contact Krishna. So it's very easy to understand. I'm sure we've all had experience. If your mind is very disturbed or you're very distracted, it's very hard to chant Hare Krishna. It's very hard to try and reach out, to try and contact Krishna, come in touch with him. Because it's like you're putting a barrier in between the two of you, and you could say dirt, and you're trying to see into a mirror. Same idea. You have to first cleanse the whole thing, then you'll be able to actually perceive reality. So sometimes people ask, why follow all these rules? Why do you not eat meat? Why do you not have fish? Why no intoxication? Why no partying? What's the point of following these rules? But generally the reason for asking that is their understanding is completely juxtaposed. Their understanding is that this is enjoyment, this is what will make you happy. But for devotees, our understanding is only coming in contact with Krishna will make us happy. Only actually achieving spiritual perfection will make us happy, because that's what will last. That's permanent, not temporary. And the only way that we can approach Krishna, the only way that we can come in touch with pure spirit is by ourselves being purely spiritual, pure spirit. So, the way we can do this is not just by karma or jnana, not just by action and our own action, and not only by knowledge, but by bhakti, by devotional service. If you try and become free of all material entanglement, it's just like, but only by doing other material activities, it's just like struggling in quicksand. If anyone knows what quicksand, it's a type of substance, you fall in it, and the harder you struggle, the more you become entrapped in it. The further you fall deep into it. So material world is just like that. The more we try and struggle through material endeavor to become free of it, the more entangled you become in it, the more desires you'll actually get. It like fuels your material desires by doing just karma, mundane karma. So the answer, the way that one can actually become free of this material entanglement is not by other material activities, but only by awakening one's spiritual senses and coming in contact with the Lord, that you become free of the cycle completely, which is discussed in a nice verse in Srimad Bhagavatam. Evam prasana manaso bhagavad bhakti yogatah bhagavad tattva vijnanam mukta sanjasya jayate. That, thus established in the mode of unalloyed goodness, the man whose mind has been enlivened by contact with devotional service to the Lord gains positive scientific knowledge of the personality of Godhead in the stage of liberation from all material association. So, first the challenge is coming up to the mode of goodness, which means cleanliness, practicing cleanliness not only materially of the gross body, but of the mind also, thinking of pure topics, not being distracted by many things that are there for us in modern times on the internet or different social media things. That helps us come up to the mode of goodness. That's one thing. And then our mind can actually come in contact with the Supreme Personality of Godhead through devotional service, and which is very enlivening. It brings awakenment to the spiritual senses. And with those spiritual senses, we can render service to the Personality of Godhead, and become free of that material contamination. So it's actually a nice, interesting thing sometimes I meditate on, that when we're engaging in devotional service, we're actually liberated from material entanglement. We're liberated from material association. But depending on the absorption, if we're fully absorbed in devotional service, then we're liberated. We're on the spiritual platform. But as soon as we hesitate, or as soon as we stop that service, or as soon as some other desire comes in for many different things, name, fame, prestige, or sense gratification, then that liberation is put on pause. We're back, and in the material world, we're back struggling with the mind and senses. So if we can just remain fully engaged, fully in contact with Krishna like that, then we're actually free, as Prabhupada is saying in the purport, that this is actual freedom, vairagya, detachment from the material world, from material enjoyment. This is actual freedom, not that to have great material facility and great enjoyment, the ability to go wherever I want, can take a jet to Hawaii or whatever. That's not actual freedom, because sooner or later you become caught up in many different anxieties, many complexities that come with these things. For example, there's one really nice family that we met in Columbus, and they surprised our hosts that we were staying with. They're very wealthy, extremely wealthy donors. So they surprised them and they said, okay, we'll be there tomorrow. We're flying on our jet, our private jet. So it was that night. We'll be there tonight. So can we have like a program with you and do some, Bhagavad Gita reading and kirtan and different things. And so the host, was all flustered. So, these things, if you think about it, some people think, well, that would be so nice if I had my own private jet. I could fly wherever I want. I could, do all that. But they don't realize, okay, how much does the fuel cost for your own private jet? How much does the parking at the airport cost? It's not just like parking here on the street, $10, $20. My guess is probably thousands of dollars per night. So, with all these material so-called freedoms, it ends up being much more of an entanglement than it is an asset. But spiritually, we can be free without having anything, without having a dollar to our name, without having a cell phone, without having whatever. But at the same time, we can use all of these things in Krishna's service, and that's the way they should be used. Yuktam vairagyam uchyate, that's the proper renunciation, is to engage whatever is necessary in Krishna consciousness for his service. And become free from selfish desires to use such things. And the last thing I was thinking in terms of, most of these previous verses have been related to sacrifice. So, as we know, sacrifice in our age is sankirtan, chanting of the holy names, distributing of books, prasadam, trying to uplift suffering souls. So, but just like in a sacrifice, a general sacrifice, there's the sacrificial fire. So sometimes we get burned, and we I think we all experience that, particularly in our sacrifice of Sankirtan Yagya. Sometimes we're nicely performing kirtan, and then all of a sudden this agitation comes, that an ego comes up that I haven't sung yet today, or why am I not playing mridanga, or why is the attention on this person, or why is he distributing so many books and I'm not, or so many different things, or anarthas come up, distractions. So, this is our impurities that we have to offer into the fire of sacrifice, of our Sankirtan Yagya, that we have to burn up by performance of Sankirtan, by our offering. So, I was thinking also of this verse from the Bhagavad Gita that I'll just pull it up. Particularly the brahmachari, or the student, in the purport of this verse, we all know that some, the unadulterated brahmacharis, sacrifice the hearing process and the senses in the fire of mental control, and others, the regulated householders, sacrifice the objects of the senses in the fire of the senses. So that means that it sounds, Yeah. What this means is that we completely engage the hearing process and the senses in service of Krishna by having complete control over them with the mind. So if one can control those things, the hearing process and the senses with the mind, then we can engage it in Krishna's service and becomes purified. So there's also a nice little thing in the purport that a brahmachari hears only words concerning Krishna consciousness. Hearing is the basic principle for understanding, and therefore the pure brahmachari engages fully in Harir Nam Anukirtanam, chanting and hearing the glories of the Lord. He restrains himself from the vibrations of material sounds, and his hearing is engaged in the transcendental sound vibration of Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. So, yeah, for us, particularly, our ashram, our mind, body, and words we can offer and sacrifice to Lord Chaitanya in the fire of Sankirtan. And, I mean, anyone can do it, but particularly it is relevant to us as that's our primary service, that we can offer everything that we have in the material assets in this fire of Sankirtan by giving everything to try and help others with our mind, creative approaches to distributing books, thinking about different opportunities like Chaitanya just did yesterday. He got creative and he was thinking about, where can I distribute more books? How can I do it? What events are there? So he found a event up north. So that's sacrificing or offering one's mind in the service of Lord Chaitanya. Of course, our body is very easily understandable by service, and words by singing or trying to convince others of the importance of Krishna consciousness. So that's what I had in thoughts on this verse. If anyone has any discussion, comments, questions. Gopo Champupu was first, I guess.
Hare Krishna, Mohan Prabhu. So, I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you can help me to answer this. I'm looking for some advice and to hear your answer on this. So, you were saying how, Krishna consciousness, we gain so much knowledge and understanding. And also, when we're sharing Krishna consciousness, at least I've noticed this tendency in myself where one may think, oh, I know so much, or I become so purified, etc., that sometimes one may become condescending in trying to speak with others, like, I know more than you, kind of thing. So how do we simultaneously maintain a humble composure while teaching someone else? Because it's ultimately kind of we're taking the position where I know I'm teaching you, so I know more than you, but at the same time I have to try to be humble.
Well, you already know the answer to this. I mean, what my Guru Maharaj just said, he said something that I thought was nice when he was asked a similar question, and was that whatever we have in Krishna consciousness especially, whatever we have has been given to us by our spiritual master, by Srila Prabhupada, by our Diksha Guru, initiating spiritual master. And it's not ours at all. And he gave the example just like a peacock's plume, peacock feathers, that one can take the peacock feathers and, wear them and, wow, I look so great with these peacock feathers. Look at me, I'm so attractive. But, actually it doesn't belong to us at all. It's not us that's attractive. It's this wonderful thing that's attractive. So similarly, this knowledge or this purification, which is undeniable, all of us who have practiced Krishna consciousness even for a day, we have become purified and we have become blessed and somewhat elevated in consciousness by the mercy of the spiritual master, by the mercy of the process. So the glory is nothing to do with us. the the you could say the credit has nothing to do with us, but the credit has completely to do with the process. So, as you know, experiencing distributing books so many times, we have the experience that your mood when you're distributing the book is the most important thing. If you're proud and you think this person's just a rascal, he's not going to understand, but I'll just try and give him some, they immediately pick up on it, because people are actually very subtle. Most people, some people are just like a bag of potatoes, but most people are, somewhat subtly perceptive, so they can immediately, when someone approaches them on the street, they think, what does this person want from me? Are they, trying to get something from me? And if you really have that inner mood of trying to give and trying to share and trying to think only about their welfare, what's best for them, care for them, then of course they pick it up and they become touched at the heart. So, yeah, that's just some thoughts on that. Hare Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. You were mentioning in the beginning of your class, you were noticing how liberal the Srila Prabhupada's translation of those words are of many ways to approach the Lord. So I was reminded of this quote by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, that the 4 sampradayas are like 4 ropes and we're in a well. And we just catch one rope and we climb out and we'll and attain the Supreme. But I feel that sometimes even within the 4 Vaishnava Sampradayas, there's this thing of understanding that our philosophy is the highest.
Right,
Even within the Vaishnava Sampradaya, we have Vishishta Dvaita, we have Dvaita, we have Achintya Beda Tattva. We understand, no, this is the highest, this is the highest. What to speak, this is just inside the Vaishnava tradition. What to speak of other religions, like you mentioned Christianity and Islam and all these other religions. So is this just a way of Krishna in the Sampradaya just to give the practicing devotees some faith and some pride in the religion they're following? Or is this like kind of like a material concoction created by the sadhaka?
Well, my thought would be it depends on your motivation, because some people, they use their tradition to glorify themselves. They say, they might say that whatever, Allah is the best, or Jesus is the best, or even Krishna is the best. Devotees, we also can fall victim to that. But really, the motivation is that actually I'm the best. I'm doing the right thing, and everyone else is doing the wrong thing, and therefore I'm superior. So again, it depends on the motivation. But that's one nice way to look at it that you mentioned. That's very, a nice way to look at it. That it could be also that for a devotee or a person who has a better motivation, that Krishna in the heart is giving them a stronger faith or a stronger, you could say, transcendental pride in their process. So, there's nothing wrong with being proud of Krishna or Krishna consciousness, or what a great tradition that we have. But as long as that pride is, ending in, oh, how great Krishna is, not, oh, how great I am. So that's something. Oh, that reminds me, my Guru Maharaj, on that topic, he had a really cool interaction I thought was really wonderful, that my spiritual master asked Pradyumna Prabhu, who was Prabhupada's Panditji, yeah. What was he? Not translator, right? He was like a... He did? Transcription, that's it, transcription, right? So he asked Pradyumna Prabhu, so in the spiritual world, because in this material world, pride is like such a difficult thing to overcome, and he says that he was seeing that, and he was experiencing himself that, pride is such an enemy in Krishna consciousness. If one becomes proud, it can so easily seep in, and if one becomes proud, one's spiritual life is finished. So he asked Pradyumna Prabhu, well, pride in this material world is, everything in this material world is a reflection of the spiritual world, but it's like a distorted reflection, so it's imperfect. There's some contamination. So then in the spiritual world, what's the pure version of pride? And Pradyumna Prabhu thought for a minute, and he said, well, in the spiritual world, spiritual pride is that I have the most masters, and I'm the servant of the most masters. So for example, Krishna, and then Radharani, and then Vishaka, and then so on and so forth. So many different masters coming down. And I'm the lowest in the chain, so I have the most masters to serve. So that's my pride, that I'm the servant of so many great personalities. So that was just one nice thing I thought about. And then, who was next?
Thank you for the class. Again, my question is kind of very similar to his, like it was a couple days ago. But I'm still in Canto 1, right? But it's relevant. How do you distinguish, because God is the God of all, God is universal, God has many, many, many forms. How do you distinguish the worshipful or appropriate for worship forms of God and the not so appropriate for worship forms of God?
That's a
What's
good
the
question.
distinguishing factor?
Yeah. Well, one thing is some are considered eternal forms and some are considered temporary forms. So, for example, my understanding is Hamsa Avatar is an incarnation of Krishna, but he's not an eternal form in that sense. He comes in the material world for a specific purpose, but Krishna is described in Srimad Bhagavatam, the form of Brajendra Krishna, Vasudeva or Brajendra Nandana Krishna, with two hands playing a flute, with peacock feathers, all those things, is the original personality of Godhead. So he, I guess you could say, he's the most true expression of God's personality. So just like we have a personality, and sometimes we have to display certain aspects to interact with certain people. So God does the same thing. For certain persons who want to approach him in a particular way, he has to display this aspect. But if one wants to really know you or really know me, they have to. There has to be a certain connection, a certain desire to really understand or to really selflessly want to love you. So same way, if one has that, then Krishna reveals his full aspect, his inner true personality. So, but one other thing about one other aspect to your question, which forms to worship, is you have to look at the result that you'll get by worshiping it. So, for example, by worshiping the eternal form, or chanting the names of the eternal forms, which is described in Karinam Chintamani, that there are primary names and there are secondary names, and primary names are describing Krishna's character, like his personality, like Brajendra Nandana, Shama Sundar, Govinda, Gopala. They discuss what he does and his like inner personality. And then there's functionary names like Ishwara, Akila Atmana, different things like that, that just describe what he does. Like it's saying, I'm a lawyer, or I'm a doctor, or that's not really who I am, but that's just what I do. So, so if one worships the primary form of God, that inner aspect of his true self, who he really is, then one can unite, one can serve, and one can go ultimately to the spiritual world where you can interact with Krishna in that way. Whereas if one worships the secondary forms or functionary forms of God, one can also achieve that service to God, but it's not in the same intimacy. It's not in the same fully heart-satisfying exchange of love. But you can still go to Vaikuntha, you can still go to the spiritual world, you can get liberated, but it won't be the same destination, you could say, or the same full expansive range of interaction.
Thank you.
Guruji, when you told about the eternal form of God, Lord Narsimha, is he also an eternal
Yes,
form
yeah.
of God?
Nrsimhadev, Ram, and Krishna are described as three fully potent forms of Bhagavan. Fully potent.
But he also came here just to fulfill one purpose, right? Just to save Prahlad Maharaj and...
That's the external purpose. But also, for example, in like Vaikuntha Loka, Nrsimhadev has his spiritual planet where he has his devotees and all those things. But it is mentioned that Nrsimhadev has all the qualities, not all the qualities even that Krishna has, but he's full in his, what's the word? He's fully Bhagavan, Ram, Nrsimha, and Krishna, those three forms in particular. Lagu Bhagavatamrita, yeah. So, yeah, even because one could think that even Krishna comes to the material world for paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya chaduskritam dharma samstapanarthaina. So, but this is the external reason. He can come at any time if he likes for any purpose, just to exchange pastimes with his devotees. He doesn't need to because he has the spiritual world. But these are the external considerations. Also with Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Prema Rasa Niryasya Korite Swadan, Rag Marg Bhakti Loke Korite Pracharan, to preach Rag Bhakti or spontaneous devotional service. Lord Chaitanya comes. But the real mood, the real reason that God comes to the material world is for enjoyment, for Prema Rasa Niryasa, to taste that spiritual love that he's hankering for. So, there's a nice purport, last thing, because we should finish, but one really nice place, I believe in Srimad Bhagavatam, Prabhupada describes that the most, I'm not going to quote it verbatim, but that one of the most pleasurable activities of Krishna, and the reason that he enjoys coming to the material world, is to uplift his fallen parts and parcels and bring them back to him. So in other words, Krishna likes preaching. Krishna likes sharing and reclaiming the fallen conditioned souls to come back to his loving embrace. That's one of his reasons for coming to the material world. That's his enjoyment. Okay, so we should finish here. Thank you very much. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Samaveta Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki. Itai Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bol.